So there are elements like I was just detailing where that I believe are in cooperation with rogue elements in America, and they want to get a war going. This gentleman is the total hand of madness, but this is exactly what the Bible said would happen.
Yeah.
Interesting. And China would benefit from a war between America and North Korea.
Oh, absolutely.
Any
A year ago, I was asked by about 2 or 3 different podcasters, "Hey, Leonard, you got to come on the show and do a geopolitical financial analysis of North Korea. This thing's going to go." And I said constantly, "No, it's not. It's a tempest in a teapot. It's a giant diversion." And one of the reasons why it's a giant diversion is because there's been 70 years of tension between North and South Korea. The North went communist, the South went capitalist. And now at the Olympics, to see some opening dialogue between North and South Korea, some common participation between the two Koreas in the Olympics, I mean, that's a major geopolitical punch in the eye in America. And the two Koreas are more than willing to do that.
Interesting. So the progression of the relationship between South Korea and North Korea is threatening to the current world powers, you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. It was Donald Rumsfeld who about 20 years ago, courtesy of ABB, gave the North Koreans the technology and the uranium to fuel a whole bunch of nuclear power plants in North Korea. And it was well known that the design of the reactors and the grade of uranium used to power those reactors could be weaponizable. And guess what? 10, 15 years later, that's what we're seeing right now. So, I mean, every time somebody says to me, "Oh, I don't know how North Korea got its nukes. Oh, I don't know where ISIS came from," I say, well, just look to the military-industrial complex, because it's been doing the same thing over and over and over for about 70 years now.
Okay. So the piece or the progression of a relationship between South Korea and North Korea, so correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm gathering is without North Korea as an enemy, it slows that military industrial complex and thus would hurt Chinese American economic relationships and just the general war machine that is America without a new fresh enemy to fight. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. That is 100% what I'm saying. Yeah. The war machine always needs an enemy, and North Korea has been the Chinese barking dog, if you will. North Korea couldn't exist without China, so China is kind of like sees itself in the way that a lot of the power brokers within America do. It sees itself as a dominant superpower. It sees itself as the replacement for the American superpower. But there, of course, are power brokers within America who say, no, we're going to keep the party going right here in America. But
so that's why it had to be a Chinese sort of rogue agent and not part of the Chinese establishment.
Exactly. That is the subtlety that we need to understand here. It's better to have an independent problem, or a problem that looks independent, as a way to have a dog to sick on your rival, if you will, than to go head to head against your rival.
Now, why? Sorry, Gans.
Sorry, just to jump in. It's really interesting that you bring all this up because in the show Mr. Robot, which I don't know if you've seen, Leonard, but I know Basil's watched. I think it was season 2, but it is this sort of rogue Chinese group that works with some of these other hackers to try to take down. The plot line's a little different. They're trying to take down the system, the what they call the New World Order, basically. But it's and China's influence is really, within the Obama administration, especially, we saw, I think, just a huge infiltration right under our nose, especially out here in Southern California and Hollywood. We had that story about a year or two ago. I think it was China's richest man buys like 6 Hollywood studios or something. And I think he's quoted in a pretty major publication. I believe it was either Forbes or Rolling Stones or something. And there you go. I got to get my facts straight. Otherwise, Leonard's not going to be my friend anymore. I will source that later. But anyway, he's basically quoted saying, he wants to buy media companies because he sees tremendous power. The power to influence is what he liked, and it goes right back to that idea of power. Why do you want to buy, Hollywood studios? Oh, because of the influence, the power of influence that Hollywood has on the whole world, really. If you think about it, think about all the people around the world that have certain ideologies that they get from, action movies or their favorite actors or whatever. And the whole culture of the whole, New World Order system is pumped through the distraction of entertainment. But then just a couple other things to bring up to sprinkle into the conversation of what you've been talking about, Leonard. The Laura Silsby thing that you brought up with Haiti. There's the connection with just these subtle things, these numbers that seem to reoccur. Laura Silsby was reportedly the one who smuggled 33 children from Haiti, not foster kids or these are just kids that had families and everything. These are like kidnapped kids. But 33, the number 33, very interesting. That would be the number. And then I believe there was one of I don't remember the guy's name, somebody who was very vocal about the corruption of the Clintons in Haiti, committed suicide recently. And, I think I tried to do a quick Google search, but all I can find are the Snopes articles saying that
allegedly committed suicide.
There you go. Yeah. All the Snopes articles trying to debunk it. But I mean, you talk about the Clinton body count, but then you have, just recently in the news, you bring up China. We had Steve Bannon, who's been, kind of marginalized and stepped down out of the political spotlight or whatever. And he came out and said that he had some relationship with some Chinese investor, which is really weird because he was the one kind of saying, that the Chinese are infiltrating America and all this stuff. And then as soon as he gets kicked out, he's making deals with, the Chinese investor, who I believe was like a criminal or something. That I may be getting the story wrong, but I think there's a lot more going on than we think. I know physically in my neck of the woods, especially the community my parents live in, it literally went from, pretty diverse neighborhood to just pretty much all Chinese over the span of a decade. It just complete takeover. It's really weird. But yeah, it's a thing that's happened. And then the connection to North Korea, to use North Korea as a proxy, I definitely have seen and heard all those sort of conspiracies, and even that the CIA has sort of some rogue, individuals. Maybe it's all part of the same rogue group all around the world to infiltrate all these governments to create this one world system. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to sprinkle in some of the stuff because I've been sitting here brewing with all those thoughts.
That was quite a sprinkle there, guys.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Maybe take this and just listen to everything Leonard said again. So go back to the beginning.
Just mix and match your own episode here.
But the next sort of phase to all this, all the financial stuff, and you said you were, change is happening in all sort of segments of society.
Real quick, before we go where I know you're going.
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
And that is going back to the China and North Korea thing. Why would we not expect that North Korea would have just launched the missile? If they are, the enemy that we want, why would North Korea? I mean, do they even have capable missiles? Or is there any reason to believe that they perhaps did send the missile?
Well, you and I don't know that. So, I mean, we could guess, but
Yeah.
conjecture is rather useless in my opinion. The point is, the person who issued the false alert insists that it wasn't a false alert. The point is, we have a history of the White House being in bed, if you will, literally perhaps, though that's a thought I don't want to get into my mind, for about 25 years. Again, there's no business like war business. Why is it, gentlemen, that we can have Chinese, American, North Korean cooperation within the Olympics and within space programs and within high-tech fields, but when it comes to money and when it comes to the military, there's no business, like I keep saying, like war business.
Yeah. It's almost
That's
like
a good question.
It's almost it is kind of a controlled theater sort of situation.
It almost seems manufactured.
Yeah, like any sports, you imagine you got the owners and you got the players. The players are kind of like the soldiers, and you roll them out. They're the ones sacrificing their bodies. There's something to that for sure. I was going to say something else, another sprinkle item, but I can't. I can't think of it now.
Well, I'll give you another sprinkle item. Okay, we had this terrorist event in Las Vegas on October 1st at the Route 91 festival. What Amtrak train number, gentlemen, derailed last week?
91?
91. And who was on that train and where was that train going? Well, some very important Republican politicians whose names escape me at the moment were on that train. And if you watch the video of the event, of the crash site, I got a question for you, gentlemen. How is it that a truck that is longer than the span between the two crossing arms manages to find itself on the center of the track, and after the event, both crossing arms are down?
Huh. I hadn't noticed. I have no answer for this riddle that you've given us.
That's right. I mean, there are so many different anomalies that it's remarkable. I mean, I got into this whole conspiracy / Bible prophecy things because I'm very good at looking at the anomalies. Now, as a video editor, I've got twin 4K cameras. I can go through a terabyte of data at the highest data settings on my cameras in about 2 hours. It's just nuts. Back about 25 years ago during the Bosnian War, I saw a video of a missile hitting a train over a bridge. And it was really choppy. And I said, there's something wrong with that video. Even back when I was much younger, before I was editing video. And now that I look at the video, it's so obvious that it was sped up. What's the point? The point is that was a civilian train, and the video was sped up to make it appear that the missile was out of control when in fact it was aiming for the precise target that it hit. So even the video on board a missile can be manipulated in order to give people the wrong perception.
Right. Yeah, and to another detail about that train derailment, from the reports I heard, all the roads had been closed and there had been police barricades days before. And I mean, this rogue, much like your rogue Chinese agent, some rogue trash truck had just found its way onto a closed road and parked perfectly on the train tracks for a train that wasn't even supposed to be there. It's crazy.
Yeah, and like I said, how does that truck fit in between two crossing arms? And because it can't, and why were the two crossing arms down after the impact? I mean, there are certain things about this that do not add up. I can't tell you about what actually happened, but I can tell you about those two crossing arms, and that to me is a red flag.
Wasn't this also the second or third Amtrak accident in the last like 2 or 3 months, which is highly, a lot more frequent than normal.
Yes, and these are fully automated tracks. There's no
Right,
human
computerized.
operator switching the tracks. Now, the question is, how easy is it to hack this? And the answer is obviously easy.
It seems like everything built right now is easy to hack, which could lead us to our next discussion here with the other side of the where things are headed. As I feel like the norm now is all the stuff we're talking about, the false flags, the intervention of trying to create chaos and create confusion and events that charge people politically and you see the emotional manipulation taking place. There's a lot happening psychologically and obviously spiritually underpinning it all. But it seems like as we sort of started the discussion, more people are just split so much. It's so bizarre. It's such a bizarre time. I think that's definitely prophetic in nature that there's going to be this. And I actually, I think it was my first interview with Derek Gilbert. I think it was like 2010 or 2011. I'd mentioned how I had this feeling, this sense of like the line being drawn in the sand a lot more clearly in the coming years. And it was kind of a gut feeling, but I think I look back at that comment and I'm like, yeah, that feeling I had, I'm kind of seeing it now. It's not just like a feeling. It's actually, I can go on Twitter and start reading people's tweets and I'm like, wow, this person's in a completely different world than what I'm looking at. And, but at the same time, we're supposed to sort of connect and stay, a lot of those are Christians too. So it's not like we can just say, oh, you're just a heretic and toss them aside. But yeah, so moving forward here, gosh, I'm getting pulled in two different directions because I have a thought about a couple more things about the stuff we were talking about.
Well, let's do both.
Yeah, let's do both. Let's because here's something else that a lot of these shootings that take place in schools, and I think we just had another one it was either this past weekend or the weekend before. I can't even keep track anymore because there's so much happening. But there was another shooting in a school, or that kind of stuff always seems to happen. And the common thread seems to be drugs, like usually some kind of psychotropic or controlled substance, not necessarily like a recreational drug, although that's sometimes the case as well. But most of the time, it's sort of some sort of psychological or something that psychiatrists prescribe. And then you have the common thread of alphabet soup agencies like the FBI always having some kind of hand in the process where they're either communicating with these individuals beforehand or they're on some kind of list, or it's never just some random person they never had their eye on. It's always like, oh yeah, we've had our eye on this person. We've talked to this person, and also the mental health part of it. Those three things seem to be a very common thing that pops up over and over and over again with these shooters. And I think there is a concerted effort, starting with the programs like MK Ultra and all that stuff, the mind control stuff that we know about now. I think there's still programs ongoing that really target individuals that may have certain mental issues and stuff like that to try to carry out acts of quote unquote domestic terror. And there's stuff out there that, I won't share the specifics, but there's somebody that is a listener to the show that shared something with us a while ago over the past year that verifies that theory, which they were really close to something that was out there in the last year. So I think, that kind of stuff we have to look out for, especially if people have kids that have, certain disabilities and things like that, just really watch out for it. And that's why it's really important to understand what we're doing with our TVs and, all the movies we watch. And it's conditioning us to sort of accept a sort of reality that's messed up, and just make it normal. But that's a long-winded way to say, just get that out of the way. I needed to get that off my chest. But then moving forward here, moving forward into the future, all these problems, these hacks, these these systems going down, even the government, falling apart because we're doing things differently.
4 days ago, I had gotten contacted by a lady named Carrie Stevenson from CNN. She had asked me originally to just write a speech. It was going to be at the town hall at the BB&T Center, so I agreed. I felt like it would be the right thing to do, be able to go speak my part, as well as open eyes to a few things that I thought that could make this situation a little better. From there, 3 days ago, so the next day after that, we had gotten, I got an email back from her, and she asked for more of questions rather than a speech, which I was totally fine with. So I wrote a little less of a speech and more of questions that I wanted to ask at the town hall. The day after that, it was more of just questions. She asked for just questions that I would like to ask. So I gave her my questions, and then yesterday at about 5:15, I made contact with her, and she had asked if I just asked her one question. So what they had actually done was wrote out a question for me, because in my interview with CNN, I had talked about arming the teachers if they were willing to arm themselves in the school to carry on campus. And they had, she had taken that of what I had briefed on and actually wrote that question out for me. So I have that question here if you'd like me to ask it for you.
Well, but I just want to make sure I have this straight. So you sent them a long, in effect, essay on what you thought, but they put
Yes,
their
sir.
own words in the question, and they weren't the same as the words you had sent in. They were the producer's words?
Absolutely. They had taken what I had wrote and what I had briefed on and talked about, and they actually wrote the question for me.
But not with your words. I mean, they put their own words into your question, even after they'd asked you to send questions
Absolutely.
in. But that seems dishonest.
It definitely did, and that's kind of why I didn't go last night. Originally, I had thought that it was going to be more of my own question and my own say, and then it turned out to be more of just a script. And she had actually said that over the phone, that I needed to stick to the script.
That's remarkable. What did you watch last night?
I watched a little bit of it. I kind of felt like I didn't really need to, because I knew that as soon as what had happened with me, that it was going to be more scripted and wasn't actually going to be actual questions. Then I didn't feel the need to fully watch it.
So if CNN was willing to reword your question, put their own words in your mouth, and as you said, you didn't want to go along with that, do you think they did that to other people last night?
I mean, absolutely. From what I did see, I'd seen a couple people that had asked questions before I did leave my house. And it was a little piece of paper cut out. And I know for a fact that nobody cut their own paper out and wrote their own question, especially when they were all based off the same topic. So to me, from right there, it showed that this isn't correct. Why are they all have the same size piece of paper with a short little question on it?
Identity theft. I always forget, Basil. Was it Experian, or was it what was the other one that we thought it was?
I don't know. I'm not going to make a claim because we got it wrong last time.
I know.
The credit agency got hacked.
Yeah, that got hacked.
You know, that one.
Yeah.
You mean Equifax?
That's the one.
We said Experian.
I hope you have your facts right, because we sure didn't.
We definitely don't for this episode. But yeah, it seems to be that there is a revolution taking place in the technology sector, in the entrepreneurial business sector, that is it's basically shaping the next phase of evolution in the internet, which involves a economic engine that is deeply tied into this new internet. And that has to do with blockchain and this new form of network computing, and a sort of communal way to trust each other in this sort of untrustable internet space that we all reside in. But you've given talks, or you've made videos on this topic, and you've explained it very well in your own words. Can you tell us a little bit about what blockchain is and what you've seen in your research in that future stuff, all the future stuff that we're about to see?
Okay. You are quite right in saying that trust is on the decline. And not even Wall Street banks trust each other, which says a lot. Just briefly, to go back to your point about school shootings, if you want to get a much greater understanding about these mass shooting incidents and how they are a synthetic combination of staged events and real actors, independent of government agencies, you really need to go to lightonconspiracies.com. Now, I'm not affiliated with that in any way, but if you want to go to YouTube and watch a Norwegian investigator by the name of Ole Damagard, it's well worth your time. He has a lecture called Terror, Are You Kidding Me? And he breaks down event after event after event, and it shows you how there are natural actors involved who have no ties to government agencies, but they're being steered, molded, shaped indirectly, if you will, by these same government agencies. And why? Because the name of the game is control. If you can capitalize, if you will, on all these school shootings in order to get control, then if you are a megalomaniac, that's what you're going to do. Now, back to blockchain. Blockchain is called a distributed ledger technology. What does that mean? Well, I'll give you an analogy. In each and every cell of your body, there is something called DNA. DNA is a code, and it's quite remarkable. That code describes the function of each and every cell of your body and has a complete copy of the code of your entire body in each and every cell. It's amazing. That's what we call a distributed ledger technology. What's the point of that? Well, when a virus or bacteria comes along and tries to embed itself in your body's DNA says, hey, you don't have the code, get out of here. And your body starts triggering defense mechanisms. For example, it triggers a fever to create white blood cells to get rid of a virus, for example. Now, as you know, Gons, buying and selling a house is a complicated, messy deal, right?
Well, I haven't bought a house before, but I would imagine that once I do, Lord willing, it would be a messy and stressful process.
Well, it is, because usually buying a house and selling a house is about a 1 to 2 month process. That's because it involves lawyers, notaries, real estate agents, bankers, city officials, etc. Why? Because we need to know that party A actually owns the house that is being sold, as opposed to acting as the imposter owner of a home while, let's say, the owners are away. That's happened before. You need to know that the credit of the buyer is good. You need to know that the house doesn't have any major issues like chimney fire that has been conveniently painted over, which is the whole reason for the house being on the market to begin with, etc., etc. Now imagine if houses were on blockchains, then we would know that the house doesn't have any liens against it. We would know that the house is structurally okay, hasn't had any fires or whatever, or mold or termites that has ever been in your local records, your local city records. And so a banker could know that the person who's selling the house actually has possession of the house, and the house is okay, and can literally transfer the money to you on the spot if you are a buyer. And if you're a seller as well, you can get your money, and knowing that the other person is completely trustworthy. It simplifies a lot. And in theory, a lot of lawyers will literally go out of business because they need to act as a counterparty risk taker to a transaction. In other words, a lawyer's career is on the line when he or she acts as a notary to, let's say, a real estate transaction, Because what that lawyer is saying is, yeah, this person is legit. Yeah, that person is legit. You're getting a third party involved. If you didn't have to go through that lawyer, things could be a lot faster and a lot cheaper. And this is what's happening now. So a distributed ledger technology is kind of like monitored digital DNA. You can see the whole series of transactions, let's say, with a house. You can see whether or not it's ever had a fire or mold or whatever. And you can accept it or reject it without even having to ask a potential homeowner or potential notary any questions about, let's say, the house you're interested in. So in theory, this is a revolutionary idea because this avoids a lot of questions as to whether or not the party that you want to do business with is trustworthy. The
Right.
problem is the money problem. And right now we're going through about 2 or 3 different financial changes at once. We've gone through the social change bit, we've gone through the geopolitical bit. Now let's just focus on the financial bit.